All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of Moonhawk Studios presents. I am your host, Mac Paladin. Sans monologue. With me in the studio is my good friend Adam.
Hello.
Kevin's in the hizzy.
Over here. I'm over here.
That's right. Petty fans up in this place running technicals
Why is there sand in your monologue?
directly into the ground. And we've got the Galix.
I should be here.
Yes. Who will be running today's interview. However, before we get into that, Adam, let's do the news.
The news. Let's see. I had my birthday a few days ago. Plans changed a bit due to circumstances, but it was overall pleasant. Dealt with some inclement weather. Like Hurricane Debbie passed by out to sea. We got some of the weather patterns. Nothing too bad. Nothing got damaged. Just a lot of rain. And yeah, that's my news for the week. Kevin?
All right.
Well, I really don't have much on the way here except weekends at the AMC, and the AMC this week was somewhat busy, but not too much. I mean, we're probably now getting more into a slower period as everybody's back at work at school around here, and it's not really going to be a lot of big movies coming along for at least the rest of this month, so there is that at the very least. I don't know whether to be happy about that or upset about that, because when it's slow, it's pretty rough, especially if you're not sure where you have to pretty much stand around for like 10-15 minutes doing nothing, which is not a pretty thing. But other than that, I mean, that's basically life around here at this point. So with that, Petty, what's going on in your world?
Still trying to help Mom find a job. Kind of a pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
But such is life when, she can only really do office work now, but she has all this medical experience. And I had a doctor's appointment on Monday, and on a lark, I went to a card shop that was selling Digimon stuff and picked up a box of the new set. And I got an extremely rare card that I don't even know how much it's actually worth right now, because the set's currently still in pre-release. So there's currently a listing on eBay for the Japanese version of it for $850, but it's also been up for months. So I'm guessing I probably wouldn't be able to sell it at that much, but it's still...
The set hasn't released yet, so they can't do proper sales of the English version until like this weekend. So, but it's still probably going to be worth a decent amount, especially since it's actually a good rare card.
Yeah, and it's what was I gonna say? Brain just short-circuited it. It's fine. So yeah, there are some people locally who are interested in purchasing it. It's called a Ghost Rare, which is like a monocolor version of one of the cards in the set. And this one in particular, it is Gallantmon Crimson mode. So for people who are fans of Digimon Tamers, this is basically Gallantmon's final form in a very sharp-looking red monochrome. Only problem is I'm not the biggest fan of it, just because the artwork of it is way too busy for my liking. So that's partly why I'm looking to sell it. Also, life things happened, and yeah, I guess going into that is we had an algae bloom in the pool, and chemicals are expensive.
Oh boy!
Yeah.
Oh yes.
our pool looks
wow.
like a swamp
Hmm.
right now because we were
Oh
having
dear.
a
Oh dear.
problem with the pump and we couldn't run it all the time because the impeller would leak when it would run. And some of the offshoots of some of the tropical storms that were coming from the Gulf hit us hard with rain, and our pool is underneath a tree. So we got hot weather, then rain, then more hot weather, high algae.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so it's one of those if I knew the pool's gonna get as bad as it did, I might not have bought the box of Digimon cards. But because I pulled that Gallantmon, if I can flip it for a couple $100, then problem solved. Literally in all aspects. So it's one of those. I'm going to a tournament on Sunday, and a couple people who are interested in it are going to be there. And by Saturday, we'll have a better idea on how many of these are showing up. You know, what's the rarity looking like, especially just, in the area. If I have the only one in the state, I could probably get a decent price compared to, like, there's a gold foil rare that keeps popping up, but I've seen like 20 or 30 of those just browsing online. I've seen maybe 6 or 7 of my Gallantmon card, and that's including mine.
Are you talking about the Magnamon one or
No,
the 3-color?
No, the Greymon of this pre-release set.
Oh, right, the Ghost Red Greymon. Gotcha.
The gold foil Greymon.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Ghost rares are weird. They're like 1 per 2 or 3 cases usually.
It's looking like for this set, there is either a ghost rare or gold foil per case of 12 boxes.
Okay, that's a bit better than usual.
But there's 6 ghost rares or gold foils. So it's a 1 in 6 chance to get one of them per case.
Mm-hmm.
And a case is running at like 1,300. So I potentially have some money on my hands, especially because there have been a lot more of the Greymon gold foils showing up than the Gallantmons. So we'll find out next week if I have a nice payday out of it. And then just got as far as pool stuff goes, got the new pump replaced. It's running right now. As far as the guy who's from the pool shop who came to install the pump said, we're going to be shocking the hell out of the pool, and the pump is not to be stopped and backwashed at least twice a day. So that's going to be fun. Here's hoping we have a clean pool by the end of the weekend, because next week we're looking at more 100-degree days. So my ass is going to really be wanting to get into that pool. But yeah, I think that's all from me.
Alex?
So yeah, been a bit of an eventful week for me. Thankfully the weather's actually been really nice the last couple of days, in between raining kind of a lot and then probably going to be raining again sometime around this weekend due to, major storm drifting steadily northward. But we'll deal with that when we deal with that, and I'm just trying to enjoy it as it is. I went to my local Digimon pre-release last weekend, and I didn't get anything as good as what Petty Fan got, and I didn't do amazing, but I did pick up some of the cards, and I'm going to be tuning up my Diablomon deck.
Do you have any of the Diaboromon aces, or?
Yes, I got the special Tamer Good set for Diaboromon and
Do you have a
Armored
play set of them, or just the one that came?
Yes, the Tamer Good set was a play set of each plus 5 tokens.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, I already have those, but this is the second set in a row that's had new good cards for that deck. Although the alt-win condition card is not amazing. It's really hard to pull off the alt-win condition.
It's one of those, it's cool that it exists, but you're probably not playing for it because you can't put the clock cards underneath tokens.
You can't?
You cannot put
I don't see any rule that says that, but you're probably right.
It's in the token rulings on the website.
The token rulings say they can't evolve, not that they can't have anything put under them, I don't think.
As I've been told, is you can't put evolution cards underneath them at all. We'll have to wait for the probably QA rulings this Friday.
Anyway, they are at least because I was under the impression that that's probably why they let you play one for free, is so if you don't have one, you can put it under it.
Mm.
But they let you play one if you don't have an existing real one. Anyway, the probably better to use them just for a cheap additional token rather than planning to try to win by getting all four on the field.
Yeah, especially because the way the deck works, you can't burn through that style of deck fast enough to get them to where you can use them.
Yeah, so yeah, there's that. I also picked up like the first Magic the Gathering products I've ever done. I got a couple of the Bloomborough pre-constructed commander decks because the idea of the Bloomborough set is cute. It's kind of Redwall-ish, small animals doing different things. They have like 10 different kinds of animals, and each one belongs to 2 different colors. Of course, being commander decks and singleton, these have a lot of non-thematic staples in them, but also commander is probably the most fun format to play as opposed to competitive, is the main reason. And at least then, since it's singleton, nobody else is going to have a consistent deck either. So my continual hatred of games that shuffle your resources into your main deck, due to I have played Magic the Gathering literally 5 times in my life, I think, and gotten mana screwed on 3 of those. But yeah, being singleton and therefore everything is kind of unreliable is probably better off. Unfortunately, I still only really have one person to play with, and it's supposed to be a 4-player free-for-all, but working on that, I guess. My parents decided they're going to switch to GoNetspeed for an internet provider, which is a local fiber company, so hopefully that goes well, and therefore it'll be faster and not something goes wrong. But if something does go wrong, then I'll probably ask Petty for stuff, and I will. He's already given me some advice to give to my parents. Apparently they're doing that around the end of this week, so we'll see. Let's see what else. Got a Splatfest coming up in Splatoon 3 that I'm trying to spend some time playing for, so I'll have my shirt filled out before the thing, and also hopefully catch back up on the catalog for this season. Because I'm a bit behind in that, but we'll see how it goes. I think that's probably about all I've got. Oh, and I dragged someone from my past in to be the show guest for today.
From your past.
Ghosts in the machine. All right. Well, still rebuilding from the flood. There's I have fixed most of the things. I still haven't. The problems with my art machine and being able to VTube and stream on my other channel are less related to the flood and more related to my how do I put this? Overly enthused enthusiastic attempts at ingenuity. I tried to force upgrade this machine to Windows 11, even though it was slightly out of range. It's a 7700K, and the only 7000 series processor that works with Windows 11 is the 7800K. So in order to make this work, you had to do some minor registry edits and change the format to GPT instead of MBR. Well, I downloaded a utility.
That was your first and final mistake.
Uh-huh. And I told it to change all the partitions. And it only changed the boot partition for Windows 10 and not the main partition, and then said, basically NT loader not found.
God, I love that.
So I've got all my programs and data on this drive, and so I've been learning quite a lot, because apparently it is salvageable if I turn off UEFI in the BIOS and reconstruct the 100 megabyte boot sector / partition, and it hopefully will start up in Windows 10 like it did before. So that way I can back up my data and do some other things. It's an M2 drive, so I can't just easily yank it out and stick it in another fucking machine and, have that just, I'll just transfer my shit over there. The only other way I could do this would be to put in this 240 gig SSD that I have, throw on Windows 11, and then transfer over the things that I want out of the downloads folder. And that would be annoying, to put it mildly. Because then I'd have to reinstall all the software that's on the secondary drive. Such as a number of games and emulators and other things that I have on there that I use for streaming on that computer. So, it's just one thing after another. Of course, I'm behind on the rent. I was expecting another amount of money to come out of Patreon this month, and then Patreon informs me, well, since they originally purchased it on August 1st, they get the entire month of August, and then that person gets billed on the 1st of September for their annual subscription. And I'm like, you charged them on August 1st of 2023. By waiting until September, you push it back a month. So in a way, they're getting a free month.
Yeah.
By that logic, then every month that you push it forward, then they get that month, and then you push it forward to the 1st of the following month. I'm like, so your response makes no sense to me, but this is Patreon we're talking about, so in a way, it makes perfect sense that it makes no sense. So I've just been kind of running around, working my tail off in the slowest period of the year in Tucson to try and get the rent and my car insurance, and yeah. So that's what's been going on with me. Other than that, it's just been cleaning up, finding additional things that did not get wet that are still broken anyway.
Like my soul. It's funny because I'm a ginger.
I pulled the Dreamcast out of the drawer and out of a drawer that was partially submerged underwater, and it's plastic, so it would have floated. And luckily that did not get damaged, but there were other things in there, such as the power adapter for my TP-Link gigabit switch that did not survive.
What, just from the humidity or whatever?
Just for existing.
That's fair.
And plus, it's not exactly convenient to move all of the furniture in my entire apartment to get all of the dirt and grime that settled underneath it from the 1.5 feet of water that flowed through here on July 15th. So, That's about the tall and short of it.
Hmm.
Since I'm stressed out, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to our interviewer of the week, Golix, to introduce our guest and get things rolling. Golix, take it away.
Yeah, so our guest today is Brett Pierce, who goes by B.H. Pierce on his books. He is a friend of mine from college, and he has written a 3-part fantasy series as well as a single standalone urban fantasy one that I am almost done with. And he, at the local anime convention, traditionally holds a couple of world-building based talks, which I usually enjoy when I'm able to get to them. So that is what we are here to talk about. You can introduce yourself, Brett.
Yes, Brett, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here. As Golux said, I'm an author. I've been writing for about 10 years. I'm really into the world building. And I've also been playing D&D since about the start of 4th edition. So I'm not as deep as I could be, but I've been playing for a good long time. And I found there's a lot of crossover with what I do for running games and what I do for writing a book.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you've been playing since before 5th edition, and as far as a lot of people are concerned, that's when it started existing, so.
Yeah. It's every now and then I have how long have I, oh my god, I've been playing D&D for 16 years. The grognard! The grognard! I can feel the urge rising.
So yeah, I guess we can start off by, if you want to tell us a bit about your series.
Oh, I've got a bunch of stuff out.
Uh-huh.
I've been having trouble really settling on a genre I want to write.
Mhm.
The first thing I did was the Atelva Chronicles, which is a 3-part novella, which is very sword and sandal. It's people with swords and sandals going on adventures, killing monsters, rescuing people, all that sort of stuff. Very classic. After I finished that, I wrote the Rosine Rising, which is what happened when I listened to way too much of the Revolutions podcast and wanted to do that. And that's probably the work I really like the most, but is the most niche. It's about basically an uprising that takes place in a city. It's inspired by the many, many French revolutions, and it follows the action from about 9 different points of view, from the people, driving events to the people who are just trying to live through 3 chaotic days. After that, yeah, keep on going.
And how long are these, like, comparatively? I've never seen that one printed out. The Atelva Chronicles books are each a fairly decent short size, but
Yeah, the Atelvas are novellas. They're between 30 to 40,000. So between the 3 of them, it's between 90 to 100,000. Rosine, if I remember right, came in between 60 to 70,000 words. It helped that it was very condensed time frame. I didn't have a lot of time to go into like wild backstory. It was, oh, city's on fire, let's go, and then a lot of action, which is fun sometimes. But yeah, it's fairly thick. It's about an average length for a novel. Like, it's not like a door stopper like you'd get from like Rothfuss or Tolkien or anything. It's sort of more like a shorter thing you'd get from Sanderson.
okay.
Then after that, I decided to keep leaning into the flintlock fantasy. Guns and magic, they mix so very well. And I set out to write Under a Pirate Flag, which was my first attempt to write something really big, which was about, let me see if I can remember the pitch. It's about a thief, a monk, an expert thief, a naive monk, a cursed blacksmith, and a harried bureaucrat who all wind up on a pirate ship going after the same person. And the adventures they have trying to take out the Grand Admiral Azun with the pirate captain Headless Bill.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
Is
didn't
that
hear
one? Is that one completed or published, or?
that one. I wanted to try to release it serially.
Uh-huh.
So after I wrote it out over a period of 3 years, I started to release it one chapter a week on a website called Royal Road, which is a free serial fiction publishing website. Which went well. I had some comments. I had 20 to 30 people reading it, which was a good ego boost. But I also released it on a new website called Campfire, which is a fiction website that is very author focused, where people can release books. It's like they're trying to compete with Amazon, and they're again very author focused. So I like being on the platform, and they let you do this really cool thing where you can attach a wiki to sort of you can attach articles to your chapter. So as people read, you'll finish like a chapter, and it's like, hey, if you want to know about the city of Chenan Harbor, here's an article.
Yeah, I
So
think I've seen ads for that on some channels, especially Overly Sarcastic Production, that I watch videos from.
Yeah, they've been advertising on that quite a lot. Because I watch Overly Sarcastic Productions too, and it's neat. So like, hey, I'm on that. Check me out. So that was the biggest project I've done. I learned a whole lot going through that. I learned a whole lot going through that one. And then the latest thing that I just came out this June is is High School Oracle, Rigged, which is actually, I have the blurb right here if you don't mind me reading it out.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. You'd think an all-seeing oracle would be better at saying no. Yaren, the 44th oracle, has a problem. She's been roped into being a candidate for Master of Ceremonies at the Orchard Street School Festival. She'd be much happier working in the stage crew and keeping the theater club running smoothly. Foreseeing that she will win in a landslide, that she will win election in a landslide, she turns to her two best friends for help: terminally tardy punk Audrey and fellow stage crew member and horror fanatic Amelia. With them on her side, Yaren sets out to use her powers to rig the election so that anyone else, wins. And that's basically the result of me having watched way too much anime in my formative years. It's a very modern fantasy, modern magic. One of my favorite things to do with magic world building is think about what would happen if you have a magical setting. Then what happens when the Industrial Revolution hits? So those are the things I've got out actively right now that are across Amazon, Royal Road, and Campfire.
I'm sorry for not accurately listing all of them. When I was looking for other stuff you'd done, I only saw the stuff that was on Amazon.
Yeah, it's one of the weird things about being an author right now is Amazon is the 800-pound gorilla, but there are other avenues for getting out to people. But given some of the restriction Amazon has, like your work can't ever be cheaper on another website. So you always have to charge the same as you do on Amazon. So Under a Pirate Flag was released for free. So I could release it on there, but then that would be a whole lot of input.
Or else you'd have to change it a lot.
Yes.
So it counts as a different edition or something.
So yeah, something like that. There's one more thing out now that I didn't write, but I had a pretty strong hand in. It is, of course, I'm blanking on the name. Yes, A Foul Light Shines, A New Home. It's the first book of a 3-part series that is based off a D&D Pathfinder campaign that I ran. and one of my players turned into a novel. So I'm very excited to spread to a wider audience the horrible things I did to them.
Did you collaborate in the writing at all, aside from the events, or was that just?
No, while I was running A Foul Light Shines, I was also writing under a pirate flag. So my roommate, my business partner, and player, Andrew, he took notes, and then once the game was done, he started writing it all out. I helped edit. I gave it a once over, so I helped in that regard. But it was most of the post game work was all Andrew's.
Mm-hmm. This is Andrew Kane, who is listed as the. Oh, I also picked that one up at the con, but I wasn't sure whether to talk about it or not.
Oh, yeah, fine by me.
Because he's not here right now.
Wow, we're not exactly talking about him behind his back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy for a little bit more exposure for the book, and I'm sure he will be too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I plan on trying to get through that. It's just hard for me to sit down and read. I have awful executive function stuff.
Yeah, it's unless I'm pretty much the same way. Unless something really grabs me, it's hard for me to keep on to a book. Which is why in the first couple chapters of all my books, I try to throw out as many hooks as physically possible.
I did notice that, and a lot of the stuff, there's a lot of stuff that makes you wonder about stuff in the setting, not necessarily immediate answers, although kind of you get more as it goes along, it feels like.
That is one of the goals, because one of the things I say in my panels about world building is, like, you never do world building in huge text blocks. That's about the worst possible way to do it. You need to, before you explain something to the audience, you have to, at least in my way of writing, what I think is a good way, is you have to make them want to know the answer to the question before you answer it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've seen, like, a lot of writers do, and a lot of DMs too, for this matter. It's something that goes into running a game and writing a book, is the second you reach, X city, you get a big long blurb about, hey, this is its history, this is some of the landmarks, etc., 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 which can be pretty dull. You want to have people be really interested in finding out, like, oh, hey, what's that, like, big monument that's all full of holes? Why is half of this wall fallen down? You need questions, and an audience eager for the answers before you sling out everything that you've worked on for the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And then sometimes if you're putting out a big edition, you can do Tolkien style. Also, there's an index that's like half of the last book in the series, and
the appendices, where we discuss the particular type of oak tree that was grown in the North Farthing of the Shire by Barlam Butterbur,
and all of the different names of the elf dynasties and
that's
Morgoth and that stuff.
Exactly. Well, when you see, Tolkien originally, it was a linguist professor, and the first thing he came up with was the languages for his world, because he was a conlang guy, and then he decided, well, I'll write a book about that. What could possibly go wrong? And then he invented the modern fantasy genre,
just on a whim.
Yeah.
And as I was reading Rigged, I came across a lot of mentions of the different kinds of fantastic people that live in this otherwise pretty recognizable in the day-to-day moments modern society. Except you got like some people where there's two kinds of them, and some of them literally pretty much forcibly fall asleep as soon as the sun sets and wake up as soon as it rises, and some that are the other way around, and people with horns that can control rocks and stuff. I guess how did you come up with some of those stuff, and also do you treat all of your books or series as completely different settings, or is there any stuff that you bring back between different projects?
Well, apart from A Foul Light Shines, which is something different, all
Right,
my
that's
books,
literally taking place in
D&D
variant
land.
D&D Pathfinder setting.
Yeah, everything, all the books I've written, all 6 of them, all take place in the same world, just at different times and places.
Okay.
So I'm really leaning in towards the Flintlock fantasy end of it. So it's as I go forward, I think everything I'm going to do is either going to be taking place in like Pirates of the Caribbean time or in the modern world. And I try to have as much crossover as possible. So I love bringing in elements from one book and having some of that stuff show up in another one. For example, in the first series I wrote, the Atelva Chronicles, a lot of the main characters are members of a fantasy culture I came up with called the Vatlamri, which are essentially Polynesian Amazons. And they're the main characters, and they're most of the main characters, and we follow them around. Then in Under a Pirate Flag, as the main cast sails further east, they start running into more modern Vatlanri, who take part in a lot of the stuff that happens. I'm an absolute spoiler maniac, so I'm going to try to not trip myself up.
I'm the opposite, but I'll try to not spoil too much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no problem. But no, I love having things that overlap to show that this is all like part of like one big world. There's a single character that's an immortal that I've had that shows up in Under a Pirate Flag and Rigged. I wanted to write him into the previous 2, but I couldn't find a decent place to slide him in, so he had to wait until Under a Pirate Flag to show up. And he's also a version of a character that shows up in every D&D campaign I run too. So he's got a long history with me.
Sorry, I was distracted for a second.
It happens. Like I said, I run D&D games a lot, so
the different books will have different details and stuff on the different kinds of peoples that live there and stuff. That's neat. Do you have a I mean, I know it's one of the things that Campfire could do. Do you have much of a world building wiki for that, or?
I'm working on developing one. A lot of my world building notes has been in notebooks and Word documents and several nested folders. So I'm trying to take advantage of all the really interesting software that Campfire offers to authors. And some of it is really neat, but it's an old habits die hard situation where I'll just be like, "Ooh, I got to jot this down in a notebook," or let me type this up in Word. So there's a lot of notes and stuff that need to be transferred over, and that's a job for future Brett.
Yeah, I am trying to work on my original fantasy project, at least insofar as like chapter/episode outlines for one of the time periods, and it's just a lot to keep track of.
Oh yeah, I've been at this, like I said, for 10 years, so I have a system down that I know how to build up, and I know what works for me, because when you're trying to be an author, when you're trying to write something, the key is that you need to find out what makes you productive, because everyone has their own style, everyone has their own way of writing. Whenever you like get a book from like a famous author that's telling you like, here's how you write, they're just telling you what works for them.
Yeah, that's not here's how you write, it's here's how I write.
Yeah, here's how I write. And there's probably a lot of good information in a lot of those books that you can pick from stuff that works for you. Like I am what's called a planner, which means I have to obsessively plan out everything I write well in advance before I start to sit down and actually write out stories. I learned that that was something I really needed. The opposite of that as a pantser is someone who sits down and goes, "Me and my keyboard are going on an adventure," and that is somehow some people write, but it's completely alien to me because I just kind of stare at my keyboard, not knowing what to do next.
See, I have the problem that planning comes super naturally to me, but I can't when I ever actually try to write. The reason why I'm doing outlines is because if I don't, I get way too obsessed with exact phrasing.
Ooh, that's tough.
Like I can't get past. I can do a scene, but doing more than that, and I get too focused on exact terminology or exact wording and how I'm gonna transition from one thing to another. And once I tried writing a thing that probably could have been like 2 scenes that were each about a page, but there ended up being 5 pages of completely irrelevant shit that happened while the characters were going from one place to another.
Ah, so you're an overwriter. There's another kind of spectrum that
Sometimes.
it took me a little while. It took me a while to figure out that this was a thing. Like all the writing advice I got, like when I was starting out, was all like, once you get your first draft out, you're going to have to like cut away like 30-40% of it, to make it readable. And I'm sitting here like I wanted this to be 100,000 words and it's 30,000 words. What's wrong? And I
see a lot of the time when I'm trying to write for a purpose, I end up doing that. Like when I'm trying to write an essay or something, it ends up being 5 sentences. But when I'm trying to do a narrative, I can't figure out where to stop showing things and change the point of view or whatever.
Well, fiction writing and essay writing are two different things. Like an essay when you're writing an essay, you're just trying to get a point across. And that can be done with, a couple sentences. But when you're writing fiction, you've got so much in your head that, you think the audience, oh, they need to know all this. Whereas they might not necessarily need to, know how many leaves on that oak tree. And,
that is another thing. I came into my awareness that not everybody knows everything that I know relatively late in life.
Yes. That is an important realization.
Because autism sure is a hell of a drug.
Yep. Yeah, that's a whole thing. But it is, although once you figure that out, then you get into the whole gamut of like, oh, now I get to explain things to people. Hooray! But yeah, it's the overwriter underwriter spectrum is another useful thing to figure out where you rely on because it'll inform your editing process more than your actual like writing process.
That's the other thing. I like getting feedback, and I usually only get feedback if I actually post a finished chunk of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know this isn't about my writing. This is more about your writing. But
yeah, I'm back at a panel room again, taking the questions I usually take.
Well, I figured that would be some of it because even if you have been working on stuff for a long time, you don't have the huge bodies of work that some people put out.
Oh no, I don't know how Sanderson does it. It drives me up the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading his Wax and Wayne series right now. And something you have to watch out for when you write a lot, when you're an author, when you're, into your own stuff, eventually you'll read something that's so good it makes you mad.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, he's doing this so efficiently, and it's everything flows so naturally, and I really like the characters, and it feels like it's been a lot, but it's only been 10,000 words, and and then you make angry noises and start and keep reading so you can learn even while you're miffed. But Sanderson really found his groove. And he also can do it full time. He doesn't have to work another job while he's also writing.
Yeah, I also, like I said, I should read more.
That really is the that really is the key to writing more. Because I realized, like, as I was going through Under a Pirate Flag, one of the things I really learned from it was like I needed to read more because I was engaging with all these wonderful stories, but they were all visual mediums.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Fallout show, The Witcher, all kinds of stuff like that, which were really good, but it doesn't quite teach you the same way. You can learn quite a bit about story structure from things like that, but like where the rubber meets the road, where the ink meets the page, that's where you really need to read to get into to to learn from the masters, or at least whoever it is you're reading from.
Yeah, I read a whole ton when I was young, but back then I had relatively terrible, like, actual structural literacy. Like, I read a lot at a pretty surface level, so.
Well, even if you're not going on a deep dive, you can learn.
Mhm.
You can learn a lot from.
I'm better now, and I understand more about it now. Just
Yeah.
when I was young, I knew the words, but I didn't always understand more than was literally said on the page that it was trying to convey.
Were you also one of those kids that mispronounced almost everything because you had read it and not actually read it out loud?
I think I would usually ask when I didn't know, but yes, sometimes.
Oh, you're doing better than me because I was running around going like, "Oh, look, it's an That's the epitome of that." Or what was the? And every now and then, like my D&D group will like roast me because I say, like, "Oh, well, we got the gist of it, or gist of it, or
Did you say
whichever way it's
epitome?
supposed to be pronounced."
It's just, yes.
Yeah,
It's epitome.
yeah. I was going around saying "gist" for like 28 years of my life.
Well, you know what they
Well, I
say:
was finally corrected.
choosy writers choose gist.
I was sitting here listening to the conversation and doom scrolling my phone, and then all of a sudden I had a blue screen of death. I was like, "What?" When I heard that word.
Yeah. No, I received enough secondhand embarrassment from the year that one of my cousins learned that CHAOS is not pronounced chouse at Thanksgiving that I
that is case in point for the tell me that you learned this word by reading it rather than hearing it.
and I did learn a lot of words by reading them, but sometimes I'd look them up for pronunciation or ask or something.
No,
I used to have a lot of problems with that with the Garfield strips back when they were intelligent.
I just blundered on ahead, assured that what I was reading, how it was pronounced in my head, was how a normal human would pronounce that word.
You know, I probably did do it. I'm just repressing memories of it. But I do remember that at least at some point I decided to ask.
And that is wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and I was just talking about my D&D group and going back to things I learned while I was writing Under a Pirate Flag is I set up the planning for I set up my outline for Under a Pirate Flag, and I planned it like I would a D&D campaign because I was more used to running D&D campaigns at the time, which was I had a bunch of characters, then I had a plot-rich environment. I was going to put them in it and see what happens. And
unfortunately, your players don't have a mind of their own when they're all you.
You'd be surprised, but
okay, sometimes.
What I didn't realize was that all the heavy lifting of character development and stuff like that was done by the players. If I wanted to have character arcs, I had to plan that out as exhaustively as I did my overall plot arcs too. So that was something I learned about a third of the way into Under a Pirate Flag, which is really informing on the stuff I'm trying to work on next. So as you write, you learn more about yourself, your process, and how to make better books. There's no real, okay, I'm here, I've got it. There's always something new to learn.
Oh yeah. That's definitely an important thing. And yeah, actually I kind of have a similar thing. I've only been a DM properly once, but I have both participated in and at least tried and managed to not fail for a little while of running collaborative online like message board based RPGs, and that's kind of similar where you have to come up with stuff, but you also have to plan for characters and stuff. And honestly, that's part of the reason why I haven't even bothered with much with specific stuff for the first chunk of the setting I'm currently working on the second chunk of, because it was originally designed for that. And it's a little bit different when you don't have other people's ideas.
Right. And the players are what you build the world around anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, what you build the world around when you do a campaign like that. When you do a long-term campaign, you build the world around them. So you have that foundation to work with. Whereas when it's just you, you've got just what's in your own brain.
Mm-hmm. Does this world that you have for your stories, does it have that? I forget. Was it centaurs or was it elves that were?
I've got both of them.
But there was a real, I think it was the centaurs that were like super long, and then elves that were based on deer or something.
Let's see. Oh yeah, there was a in my. Oh yeah, you're remembering the deep lore.
Yeah.
When I was initially developing my centaur analog, I called them the Rajasa. I kind of approached it from an evolutionary angle.
Mm-hmm.
Like how would these centaur need to eat? If they were just
Are they herbivore, carnivore, omnivore?
Yeah. How would they get food? Because the horse can eat because it can just put its head down, but a centaur bending over, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
And my original thought was to give them like triple jointed limbs, so they could like reach down and pick up grass, or like reach up and get leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I thought about that, the more I couldn't quite square that with how that would look and how that would function in a normal biological way. So I kind of wound up making them more typical centaurs, but I did a lot with their culture and like how this people would exist in a society with regular humans. And one of the things I like to do when I world build is a lot of story. There's conflict in all stories,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of especially fantasy has all the different races at odds with each other, and all these people at odds with each other. You have the classic elven dwarven rivalry. The rock and stone folks versus the knife ears and all that. But when
or failing that, everybody ganging up on everybody whose skin color is vaguely green.
Correct. Yes. And when I went into building stuff with Senraxi, I always found it way more interesting on a world building level to develop systems as to why these very different people get along.
Mm-hmm.
And with my take on the centaur, what I wound up doing was giving them like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle hands. The like 3 really big fingers.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not very dexterous. And eventually they run into a fleeing refugee population of humans who have cloth weaving and more advanced manufacturing. Like they're more Iron Age. So then these two groups fall into kind of a symbiosis. The centaur, the muscle, and they do agriculture and farming and all the stuff you use a horse for in the ancient world, plowing, mounted combat, all that stuff. And the people are more about the economy. They make small things. They're more dexterous with their 5-fingered hands. And that was the way I had them come together and work together, rather than having that tired old. You have one cast that's higher, one cast that's lower. They're more in a symbiosis than conflict.
The one best example in who was it? Alan Dean Foster wrote about a science fiction series where the humans met up with a insect alien species, and they ended up really complementing each other. But yeah, the reason I brought up the centaur specifically is because I came across a couple of posts on the internet recently about some of the stuff that centaur biology would kind of have to imply. And I remembered your very long centaurs.
Oh yeah, I've spent a lot of time on that. One of the dangers of being a compulsive world builder is you'll go on a deep dive on some project like Centaur or Elves or whatever you really want to do, and you have this awesome, wonderful, complete thing, and then no idea how to use it in a story.
Mm-hmm.
Which is where I am at with the Rakasa right now. But I have ideas for them going forward with them. As said, one thing I'm really interested in is the idea of you have this magic stuff, but then technology goes on. I really dislike the idea of medieval stasis. I love the idea of like a fluid, dynamic, and evolving culture where you get to the point where horses aren't the fastest thing on the battlefield anymore. And then how do they adapt?
And eventually people discover, unless there's really easy to use magic for it, people will develop like electricity or
exactly
steam power or
exactly. And with Rigged, which is the book I've got out now. It's very modern magic. It takes place in Senraxi that is analogous to our modern world. There's cell phones and jets and stock markets and all that stuff. And Rigged came about from a thought experiment I started on, a world building rabbit hole I went down, which was how would, if there were people that could, or a person that could see the future and see the past and like scry in the present, how would that person fit into society? Because that is being the arbiter of truth is something that would be incredibly powerful. Because I know what you actually said, in that backdoor meeting, or like I know who your true father is because I'm the Oracle, and we're not going to do that because I looked into the future and the whole army is going to get dysentery in 3 days, so we're not going to march that way. And what I wound up figuring out is this Oracle would need a state. They'd have to have a state apparatus around to, keep them safe and help carry out their will. But also that's a person. Yes, also that's a person. And they'd need that because every crowned head and moneyed hand would be after them. And Rigged is the culmination of that. Is what would someone who can do all that be like in the modern world?
And it is kind of important for them to still be a normal person, for their readings to be, relevant.
Yeah. So it's in Rigged, I have the main character is Yaren, what was it,
44th on the back of the book, it says so.
44th Oracle, yes. So there's like a whole bureaucracy built up, and when the Oracle's Vale, which is a country, when it modernized, they set modernized in like about the late 1800s. The Oracle Holly set up a public school system, and one of her decrees was the Oracle will be educated in the public school system like everybody else, so she won't be completely alien to the people.
Mm-hmm.
And Yaren is the second Oracle to grow up in that system. And her school is a very discreet fortress because there's all kinds of nasty things in the world that would love to get their hands on her.
Mm-hmm.
And coming up with those things to work around, which is like, all right, they're not going to let the Oracle walk to school. How is she going to get to school? She lives in a palace, all that. And coming up with ways around that really helps build the story because it's how best to explain. How best to get this going. I'm a firm believer in that boundaries are very good for creativity. That having to work around things like I assume people like in this group have played like the 16-bit games, the 8-bit games, like the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis era games, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe not Petty Fan. He's a baby. I'm kidding. He's not. He's probably not even that much younger than you.
I mean, some of the music and the visuals and the stuff that they managed to do is just amazing. And when you look at the development of those games, a lot of it was them working around inherent limitations they had with the hardware,
Mm-hmm.
and still managing to come up with like a really good like piece of art, piece of music, piece of storytelling. And all the stuff that I had to work around in rigged really helped me make a better story and a better setting, because I had to take into account of things like, okay, we have the Vosh. Half of them are awake during the day and half of them are awake at night. And, it's a magical curse. They can't change that. How does that work?
I actually had a question about that too. About around what latitude / axial tilt are we talking about here? Because that's not going to be the same amount of time in different parts of the year.
That's correct. And you're right. I did have to think on that. And their sleep cycle is more or less tied to the sun.
Mm-hmm.
There's about 4 hours of overlap in the morning and in the evening when they're both awake at the same time, which is culturally a very important moment for them because then they get to see, each other when they're not asleep.
Mm-hmm.
But depending on when the sun rises and sets, it will affect when they, start falling asleep. So in ones that are in latitudes that are closer to the equator, where there's less twilight, they have less time that would be together. Whereas the further from the equator, when there's more twilight, they'd be awake at a similar amount of time for longer. But they still do fall into that unwakeable sleep.
Must be problematic for those that live very far north and have to do. Well, we live in Maine. You know how short the days get during summer here, or during winter here.
None of them have gone particularly far north or south, so that hasn't been a huge issue.
Yeah, I guess there would be some. What's the word? Encouragement to not do that.
Yes, it's. Let's not find out what happens when we do that. And then
what happened? What happened to that one tribe who didn't get along with us and decided to go north and go on an expedition to send new land northward? Well, most of them died during the winter
because they just slept. No one was around to keep an eye on anybody.
And the ones that were up at night couldn't get enough of some things done because of darkness.
Yes, and that's some of the most fun I have with world building is you get this concept, like, you have the Vosh. Half of them are awake during the day, half of them are awake during the night. How would that people function in like a society? Because they're at a huge disadvantage in dealing with their peers because, everyone can be awake all at once. The day Vosh have like brick red skin, and the night Vosh have like purple skin. So they're very easy to identify, which is never very good. And I wound up, and I couldn't think like how these people would persevere until I realized, oh, I can tie it in with something else I have in the world, the Oracle. Because in that setting, you may have run across this in a chapter, Golux. The Oracle is the protector of the Vosh. She is the protector of their sleep. And she's basically, other oracles in the past have made the declaration again and again, is like, don't mess with the Vosh's sleep, or else I'll come after you. And that doesn't convince like people on the ground to do anything about it, like the everyday people, but it does get the kings and the governors and the presidents into making sure no one does that, because none of them want the eye of the Oracle on them.
Right.
Because
And it makes sense considering, especially for the last few generations, the Oracle has had a thing for protecting the underclasses of people, or the less fortunate people.
yes, the Oracle Holly has been one of my favorite background characters. She was, this is not too much of a spoiler, but the Oracle Holly is the one that modernized the Veil, that the Oracle's Veil, which took it from kind of like a museum-y backwater to an industrial power, like kind of on par with like what South Korea would be in our world today.
Mm-hmm.
And she started by rolling up at a strike, a big general strike at this rail yard that the whatever government was going to like forcibly break up. And she just rolled up with her champion and like 500 cavalrymen and just said, like, I'm on your side. I'm gonna go bring all your demands. You're right. You're right about all this. Let's get a photograph together with me and all the union leaders. I'm officially putting you under my protection. If anything bad happens to you, whoever did it will answer to me. And then that's why in that particular area of the world, the labor movement took off, like, very quickly, because it had the protection and blessing of the Oracle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what I love about throwing like magic stuff into more like Wild West era stuff, or like Civil War era stuff. How does all this magic interact with power structures and economies and the technology that's growing?
That is also something I like to think about and sometimes get a little bit tied up in.
But that's
Because
you
there's some things where if you change them, it kind of implies changing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's why I've had to be very, very careful with magic,
Mm-hmm.
because like say you have the people that can levitate rocks, the Ito, which is one of the characters in it. Now that doesn't really affect the development of technology, being able to like move rocks around with your mind. You can do some cool stuff with it, but it's not really going to screw things up. But when you get into like the control of heat, like that could really have a pretty big ripple effects on everything that's going on. Because
particularly considering even today, the vast majority of our power generation methods involve make thing hot.
Yeah, exactly. Like steam, like the one-man steam engine over here. That sort of thing. The control of temperature would have implications for metallurgy. Like one of the reasons why a lot of metal was crap for a very long time was because we couldn't get certain temperatures up. We couldn't get temperatures high enough to melt certain ores. And it wasn't until we came up with coal and started digging up coal and all kinds of other wacky stuff that we could do that. Like lightning powers. That's crazy. Like once people start really looking into electricity, that could have all kinds of effects.
Mm-hmm.
I love, one of my favorite eras of history is the early scientific revolution in Europe. like the 1600s, 1700s era, when they're really starting to question like everything the Greeks said and really laying down scientific rigor. Because you have people doing these absolutely like mental things to try to figure out stuff, to try to figure out how things work. Like the element phosphorus was discovered by someone boiling down 900 gallons of human urine because he thought he'd find gold in it.
Well, it's yellow, so sure,
Yeah.
why not?
And he eventually wound up condensing phosphorus in that way. I'm sure his neighbors hated him.
Assuming he had any left, yes.
You know, like I'd move out the first time like my neighbor wanted to buy my pee. I'd be like, I don't know what he's up to. I don't want to know. I'm moving to Germany, just somewhere.
One of the things that sticks in my head is how they disproved the existence of phlogiston.
Oh,
They literally set up a drill and a thing of metal and a treadmill for horses, or the round version of a treadmill, and just kept drilling until there was, like, because if there was phlogiston, then eventually it would stop being able to make sparks as you drilled out the middle of the thing. And it never did.
Yeah, there was one really famous experiment called the willow tree experiment, where I forget his name, but he was a scientist was testing Aristotle's theory that trees get all their matter when they grow from the ground. So what he did was he planted a willow tree in a pot and like watered it and took care of it for 5 years. And then he took it out.
Wikipedia says Jan Baptista van Helmont.
That sounds about right. And then he took the willow tree out after 5 years and then weighed all the dirt, and it weighed exactly the same. But everyone was flummoxed, like, so where's it getting the stuff from? And eventually we figured out, oh, it's pulling it in from the air and the water. But I just love that era of history, which is probably why I'm writing everything in like Flintlock. Why I'm really leaning toward Flintlock fantasy, because that's just a fun era, and pirates are cool.
Pirates are cool. Especially fantasy pirates, where they get to not smell quite as bad or have quite as bad teeth.
Yeah, I don't have any hygiene spells in my in my setting, unfortunately. So all my pirates still reek. I don't
maybe they figured out something for scurvy, though.
Yeah, that's another neat like discovery of that era. It's like people's teeth are falling out. But this guy's teeth didn't fall out. Why was that? Like, oh, I ate an orange. All right, we're going to feed everyone oranges. Hey, it worked.
We don't have oranges, so we're going to feed our guys limes. Still worked, but not as well. Oh, well, we're still going to call your entire country that forever.
One thing I have that's shown up in the background of the two Flintlock fantasy pieces I've written, The Rosine Rising and Under a Pirate Flag. But it's only in the background, but it's winds up being a very important thing to the history of Senraxi altogether. Are things called the Grey Societies, which are basically orders of people whose whole shtick is that they want to gather and spread information.
Mm-hmm.
And they were they were the mechanism I used to avoid colonialism in Senraxi, because I really didn't want to have that that era in the history of my world where like one small chunk of the world takes over everyone else. Partly because that's awful, and another part is like, have you watched a UN meeting and you have these people from all over the world, like it's the whole world represented in one room, and like everyone's wearing a suit. And I find that just so annoying from a world builder's perspective. Like you've got like a couple of the
to some extent that's a result of colonialism, because
it very much
the colonial powers are the ones who had that as their standard of dress. So when other people got invited to the party, they had to dress up like that.
Exactly. And it's like, if it's representing the world, it'd be, how cool would it be to like look into the UN and like, you've got like, a cowboy with the, from America with like the bolo tie. But then over there, you got like this Chinese guy in Han Fu and someone showing up, someone showing up with India with like, in turbans and all that stuff. It should look like way more diverse than it does. And that's something I really wanted to make sure happened in Sanraxi, that all these like traditions continued on even with the advent of industrialization, of globalization, and all that.
Yeah, and
And-
colonialism is one of the things that I've currently trying to figure out for my setting too, because you can't just not have anything happen, because then everybody's just all relatively isolated. They have to interact somehow, but like,
if you want an example to look at how foreign powers interacted with the Chinese in like the 1600s, because there's a book called I think it's Silver Sea Rovers and Samurai, by a professor called, an expert on gunpowder called Antonio Andrade. And it's just a bunch of different essays about the South China Sea in like the 1600s, when all these foreigners from Europe and from Europe were coming into the South China Sea and starting to interact with the Chinese. And the Europeans had pretty much been running roughshod over everyone they ran into, and then they ran straight into, I think it was the Ming Dynasty. And the Ming Dynasty,
Ming or Qing, one of those.
Yeah, the Ming Dynasty could resist them, because you have like all these really cool stories of how the Chinese never really developed cannons at the same rate that the Europeans had. But then they started showing up, they immediately started to reverse engineer them, and it's like something out of Star Trek. Like,
because they did have gunpowder.
They
just used it for art and stuff.
Yeah,
and demolition
and hand weapons. They had like guns and stuff, but Chinese walls were just too big for cannons to really affect. But the second they got their hands on them, they like reversed engineered them and like improved on them, and like were doing all this cool stuff. And they were basically pushed back the Portuguese and the Dutch. So if you wanted some historical examples, that's a really cool one to do.
I might try and check that out.
Yeah, there was a story that's hilarious to me. No one else really seems to think it's that funny, but I think it's just the best. It's the story of how a Chinese ship captain was attacked by Dutch pirates, so he sued the Dutch in Japan, and the Japanese compelled the Dutch to pay damages. And it sounds like that shouldn't work at all, but it happened. And it just sounds so dumb and so weird that shouldn't happen in like Pirates of the Caribbean times. Like, but it did. It's the Japanese decided, like, well, that ship was trading with us, so we have jurisdiction over it, so you can't attack it. And the Dutch were like, well, no, we're going to do that. What are you going to do? We're going to start confiscating all your stuff on the Jima Island. That's what we're going to do. And they did, and the Dutch paid up. And it sounds like so weird and out of place, but it also just kind of goes through that people are the same, just as like the years go on. It's this weird legal thing happened, and a Chinese guy sued the Dutch in Japanese court and won. Again, I think that's hilarious. No one else seems to, but I love it.
It's certainly an interesting story.
Yeah.
And also, that's a really interesting period, because, again, I think we're about in the area where we're talking about, like, pirates and samurai, and also cowboys are going on, and all of those things kind of happened at around the same time, just in different places. So, depending on how much travel is possible, you can get some very interesting combinations.
You had Japanese samurai mercenaries fighting the Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
In the Philippines. and having just
hmm
sending hilarious letters back and forth between each other, like the Spanish. The Spanish, I think it's Spanish Habsburgs at this point, sending a letter to the Japanese shogun, saying that God has made us king of all we survey, and like we're the kings of you. And then the Japanese can like, well, no, we're the kings of you because we're descended from the sun god. And it's just this diplomacy that we still have, and it's preserved, and it's just so weird, but just so kind of typical of what you'd expect of two egotists sending letters to each other half a world away.
Mm. Anyway, we are getting near the time when we usually try to shift over to our topic of discussion. So, is there anything else you would like to promote or upcoming appearances? Anything you work on that you want people to know about? Or I know you don't have a ton of social media stuff. I don't know what else you do.
Yeah, my convention appearances. My convention year won't be starting up again until January, so I won't have anywhere that I'm going in the next couple months. One of the issues with living off on one extreme end of the country is that everything is very, very far away.
Don't I know it?
Yeah, you know my pain. Just check out Campfire. Everyone, there's a lot of really cool books going up there. There's a lot of really cool stuff, mine included. They're very author centric. They're trying to take on Amazon. I hope they do. Try to give them some competition. But everything I've got is up either on Royal Road, Campfire, or Amazon. Go looking for BH Pierce there. You'll find my stuff. Give it a read. Give it a review. Oh, and not something I'm doing, but my roommate, business partner, very old friend, Andrew Kane, is writing an urban fantasy series called the Forest City Mage series. It's got a Harry Dresden vibes, Dresden Files vibes. It's set in Portland, Maine, and various other locales in Maine. So if you like the Dresden Files, you'll like that. There's colonial era ghosts. There's velociraptor skeletons kicking down doors. It's all kinds of fun.
Sounds neat.
All right.
Probably have to try and check that out.
The first
All
book is Dead Mage Walking.
Nice. Brett, I have put your Amazon store link in the chat.
Oh, splendid. Thank you.
Want to thank you for coming out today. This has definitely been interesting and educational, which I can't say about every one of our podcasts.
I try. I mean, I know y'all just brought me on so I could tell you embarrassing stories about the Golux. But he's got dirt on me too, so we aren't going down that road.
Weapons of mass destruction.
All right, everybody. That is Brett Pierce, aka BH Pierce. You can find him on Amazon under BH Pierce. Be sure to look up his books there and at any of your fine retailer establishments that carry them. Coming up is the entertainment segment. Adam, I think there's a lot to talk about, isn't there?
Yes, or at least we have to return to a popular subject on this segment. That's Warner Brothers Discovery.
Zaslav be Zazzin. Zaslav be Zazzin
yes.
again. Didn't they bury something like $9 billion worth of stuff?
11 billion actually, but 9 million specifically.
It went up since the tweet an hour ago.
Well, also there's this thing where apparently they've lost something like half of their market cap in value or something.
Funny how that works when you don't actually release anything.
That has nothing to do with what's going on here.
I know. I was just making a joke.
Yeah.
All right, well,
More to
let's
the
hear it.
point. More to the point. This is what happened. Well, it was announced today that let me see the actual number here. Yeah, but because of the fact that, as we previously noted, the Warner Brothers Discovery lost the rights, although they're trying to fight in court, but they're probably not going to get anywhere with it. Lost rights to the NBA. Warner Brothers decided to take a whopping $9.1 billion non-cash impairment because of losing the NBA, and also because losing the NBA is going to dramatically cause the value of TNT, and therefore the rest of the entire Warner Bros. Discovery linear plex, to lose value.
I mean,
This is where I'd put my surprised face if I had one.
Did TNT have
And-
any other use other than airing NBA games?
Well, they
days?
did for 20, 30 of the 40 years, yes. But like all linear television networks, they've lost some steam outside of sports content. And
I believe the term
let's just say that-
sublimation would be applicable here.
Yeah. Well, TNT specifically, every single cable network has a per subscriber fee, meaning pretty much the amount of money that these networks get from every cable subscriber. TNT has one of the most expensive ones of that, from what I've read, about $3 a subscriber, which may not sound like a lot, but when there's like 10, 20, 30 million people who are subscribed to cable, yeah, that adds up.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the fact that TNT has lost the NBA as of next year, or I think it's either next year or 2026, cable companies are going to want to go, hey, that $3 subscription fee, yeah, we want a cut of that back.
Yeah, because the only
And it's gonna
purpose your
drop
network
from-
serves is the NBA.
Right, well, on the other hand, they are trying to do what CBS did after they lost the NFL back in the 90s, which is to basically get whatever rights they can get their hands on, right? So they have the NHL, they're getting college football on loan from ESPN. They're getting NASCAR. They're getting pretty much anything they can get their hands on to
They're getting
fill the
NASCAR
hole.
back. I remember they lost NASCAR for a while.
Yeah, they're getting summer races as of next year,
Mhm.
which was what they did last time they had NASCAR. But whatever it is. But yeah. Here it is right here. The per subscriber fee for last year was $3 a subscriber, and that's pretty much a big thing for them, getting all of that money. When the cable companies are going to start asking for, cuts to that subscriber fee, which may lead to very bitter retransmission battles that could cause TNT and Turner and Warner Brothers Discovery networks to go off of the air for some of these cable networks if the retransmission deals go down hard, and they really don't have a thing to, force and pressure the cable companies to cave in. The only one that they had was the NBA, and that'll be gone.
Yeah. So they need to find something in
So-
a hurry before cable companies start coming and knocking and be like, hey, yeah, why are we
Oh,
paying
it's
you
too late for
$3 a
that.
person?
Right. It's too late for that. And because it's too late for that, that's why the company is now, it's like I said when we talked about them losing the rights. This company is capital F fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Because literally, losing the NBA is going to cause a financial black hole. And that is the hole that you've seen. It's $9 billion at minimum. I've seen some things that it's actually a little bit more, about $11 billion. But more specifically, it's $9.1 billion. That's a big, big financial hole.
That
and
is
over
literally
time,
more than
that's
any
going
of
to
us will
grow.
see in our lifetimes.
Right, and also, you talked about the overall value of the company. From what I've read, the actual overall value of the company overall is $18 billion. And they just took a
Rip.
hit of 9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's just say that possibility does exist that they may have to consider doing something that would be catastrophic for creativity, but probably is the only thing that could happen that makes financial sense. Blow up and split up the company. Now it may be difficult because of antitrust and tax penalties and all that type of stuff, but yeah, what they're doing right now isn't working, and they just lost probably the biggest piece of value they have in the company.
Well, I guess the question should be
Because
asked:
I'll
what
tell
the
you,
fuck are they doing right now?
scrambling, and
Setting things on
they're claiming that
fire.
setting things on fire, but they're claiming that everything's all good and everything because Max got a small profit. Sure, yeah, whatever. But yeah, and remember where this all began. David Zaslav's big fat mouth when he went onto a stage at an investor conference and stated, "We don't need the NBA." And Adam Silver went, "Oh, really? Okay."
In
And then
eerie
when they,
echoes, in eerie echoes, uh, today a certain muskrat who's in charge of a major social media thing has decided to declare legal war on the advertisers that are refraining from working with his company. A few months after he literally said that, after he was
Awesome.
asked about whether the advertisers would want him, and he said, "Fuck them, we don't need advertisers."
It's the consequence to my actions.
Gas.
Everyone loves the
And
finding
also,
out phase.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, and also, no, you can't sue your way to profitability, and no, you can't force people to advertise with you by suing them in court. It doesn't matter if you decided to get a friendly kiss-ass judge in Texas.
What?
It doesn't matter.
In what planet has that ever worked?
Well, apparently, from what I understand, they sued specifically to get a judge that would probably be receptive to them because, conservative bullshit. But again, you can sue them all you want. They're still not going to put a dime on this hell nest. They're not going to do it.
Like, unless there is an
Like, I know
active contract they're backing out of, they have no leg to stand on.
No, like, well, in normal world, yes, but we'll have to see in a court of a nutty judge. So,
Yeah, fair. And I mean, it'll be stricken down
But
by
it-
anything higher, you know?
hopefully, but it's like, even if it's like they rule that, oh my god, you violated this, whatever, you're not going to force them to advertise on your platform. That's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not how it works. Like, if a company, like, specifically says, "Hey, we think that this site that you're running is complete is literally hell, and we do not want to put a dime into it."
You are personally,
You're not gonna get
talking bullshit and promoting shit that do not agree with our company's values. Why would we give you a single red cent?
And
I like
also
the
to Linda over there, you can say
yeah.
whatever you want about what you want for for X, okay? And I stress that X because I hate everybody here knows that that
Nobody
branding
calls it
stinks.
X.
Well, they don't specifically just call it X. Sometimes they call it X, formerly known as Twitter, which is not something that they want people to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Oh,
but more to the point. Linda can say whatever she wants. Linda can do what she can go around and try to schmooze and wine and dine and whatever. The problem is that her boss is Elon Musk. And every time that he gets onto his gets on his phone and types something, he ruins the whole plan. Always. And she doesn't seem to understand, or even worse, she probably doesn't give a shit.
The best laid plans of executives and men or of businessmen are something stupid people higher up in the chain of command than them. I lost track of that one. Sorry.
Yeah. I just read that. I just read that letter from Linda, and I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Illegal boycotts? There's no such thing as an illegal boycott unless the government themselves organizes it. Private organizations." Private oversight organizations that are not affiliated with the federal government of the United States or are affiliated with other governments not governed by the U.S. Constitution can do whatever the fuck they want, Elon, you fucking... I was going to say something
as long
bad.
as they're not, disregarding terms of a contract, they're welcome to tell Elon to go fuck off.
By the way, did you notice that it wasn't just a letter? She actually cut a video.
Oh my god.
I haven't gotten
that far yet, and I probably would have had thoughts of unaliving myself had I seen it.
No, it's basically literally a hostage video.
We could all watch together if you really wanted to.
Being forced to read this off of cue cards.
Blink twice if you need help.
What the fuck was that Lou Diamond Phillips movie from 1998 that's come back as a meme now? You know, where he's like, read this, and he's holding up a tape recorder. And there's like all the spelling errors and stuff.
The big hit?
That's what it feels like. Yes, that's it.
I literally had to look up Lou Diamond Phillips 1998 for that, but yes. But like,
hey, look, it's a TikTok meme right now. Oh yeah, and don't forget, Donald Trump is going to save TikTok.
Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about TikTok.
No, he definitely cares about TikTok because his boy owns part of ByteDance.
Yeah, it's about the money, honey. That's what it is. It's all about that money. Whoever gives him cash, whoever gives him money, whoever kisses his ass, he's gonna favor whoever that is. That's the point of the matter.
I couldn't even make it all the way through the Twitter letter. I could not make it all the way through. I was just reading this, and I'm like, this is the prime example coming from the head herself of TLDR. I got so depressed about halfway through it, I just closed the window. I closed the whole app. I didn't even go back to doom scrolling hentai.
It's like,
would that even really be doom scrolling?
Again, when we talk about Linda, let's always remember she wanted to take this job. She wanted to work alongside Elon. She wanted to do this. The fact that she hasn't quit, like any other executive with any sense would have done by this point. The fact that she's, sitting right there, just saying what she wrote on a camera into a microphone for all of us to see. She wanted this. Let's always remember that. And she doesn't seem to understand. She doesn't seem to understand that the rest of us don't like this bullshit. It is what it is.
It's like Morton. It's like the late great Morton Downey Jr.'s catchphrase on his old TV show: "Pablum puking putzes."
Well, it's pretty much.
It's oddly apt all these years later.
Somehow, even though he used that for our side of the aisle, as it were. But yeah, pretty much.
Well, the more extreme side. Yes. Speaking of entertainment, how about that Tim Walz?
He's certainly entertaining.
Say hello to Minnesota, folks. Welcome to the party, pal.
I just was so giddy when he called J.D. Vance a couch fucker in not so many words on national TV.
International television. That shit played live internationally because that was their first rally.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so there was so people watched that not just in this country but in other countries as well. That was international right there. Yeah, see. You know, a lot of people think, you know, when they hear Minnesota, they think Minnesota nice is, you know, oh shucks, you know, soft stuff. Nah, no. Minnesota makes them tough. Minnesota makes them strong. Minnesota makes them iron-willed. Okay, this is what we do. Yeah, and the rest of the country is gonna find the rest of the country and the rest of the world is gonna find out what Minnesota's all about right here. Okay, this is why I wanted Tim to get this job, and why I'm absolutely ecstatic that he won it. Because let's make this clear. When this whole process began, nobody thought that Tim would get the job.
Oh my god.
He literally won it. And he won it because he's of his charm, because of stuff like that. Because he can make you feel good, make you feel, you know, he can joke with you, he can pal around you. He's someone who, yes, you want to have a beer with. But in a good way, and not you know, in a way where both of you are laughing and having fun and palling around. And not someone just drinking, and not, you know, someone you're drinking a beer with because you want to drink a beer to understand what the fuck he's talking about.
As the internet said, he's the guy that you will stand for 20 to 30 minutes in Home Depot fascinatedly listening to him talk about why you need hex bolts for your project.
Yep. I'm telling you, he reminds me of my father, my late grandparents, my uncles. Like, half of my family comes from Minnesota. So when I hear Tim Waltz, I'm hearing my family. Let me tell you.
Oh
Yeah,
god.
we're that fun, okay? I'll tell you that right now.
He does also seem to have very good credentials, specifically in the area of starting from a normal / low entry point and working his way up to significant positions. So he seems trustworthy in that way.
Well, you know he's going to be a powerful advocate for the Department of Education.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Especially when the other side is literally, we want to dismantle it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I was kind of apprehensive going into this year, but I'll tell you what, now that we've got coconut trees and special turkey legs.
I hate that.
He's also the guy that figured out that calling the Republicans weird is a really good angle of attack.
And that's how he got the job.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one who coined that.
Yep.
And everybody's like, whoa, wait a minute.
This is really upsetting them.
Yeah, it really...
Well, because the way that they work derives a lot of its power from their insistence that it's the normal way of doing things.
Yes.
And having someone who can effectively point out that the Emperor's new clothes are, in fact, inappropriate for most public settings.
And now
he did that, and he
absolutely everything is not normal.
Mm-hmm.
And now the take is divided between the fun aunt and uncle and the weird cousin and the guy you don't make eye contact with on the subway.
Pretty much.
Largely because he might have his security detail kick your ass.
Mm-hmm.
Or be shot by one of his own guys. I mean, wait, what?
Oops.
Yeah, the next few months are going to be fun. We haven't even gotten to Chicago yet.
Oh, man.
We haven't gotten to the convention yet. Everybody thought it was going to be like 1968. Yeah, there might be some stuff in the streets down there, but it ain't going to be going into the arena. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, and what's this about JD saying he'll debate Kamala but not Tim?
He's They're both bitter over the fact that we flipped the ticket.
And she
They're
is
both
utterly
bitter about it.
brutalizing.
They're refusing to accept the reality of who their opponents actually are.
Well, they spent
It's like,
the last half a year harping the whole Biden's old, and
Yeah,
now he's
now
not there
Trump's
anymore.
old.
Yeah,
Donald
whole
Trump is the
campaign-
old man who basically shit himself during his own criminal trial. You know.
the whole
Kevin, you're
the
being cut
whole
out.
campaign. So, yeah, I'm being cut out. Oh, sorry. Yeah,
All right, try
I
again.
mean, if okay, can y'all hear me? Am I cutting
Yeah,
it
you're
out
back.
still, or?
I
All
can
right,
hear
you're
you.
back.
Yeah, I'm popping in and out. Hold on just a second. Let me get a different connection here real quick from my phone. That doesn't go in and out if it's load up.
All right.
Hold on. Okay, I'm back here. I have to go
All right.
get a smoother connection here from my iPhone because
Oh man.
the AT&T fiber gets to go popping in and out. But as what I was going to say here is, let us remind ourselves that their whole campaign was built upon the concept of beating Biden for revenge for 2020. That's what this whole thing was about. From the very beginning. Never mind the old stuff, never mind the age, never mind everything else. This was about revenge for 2020. And it was all predicated upon Trump running to beat Biden because he won the last time and he's going to win it for real this time. But now they're not running against Biden anymore. He's going to be a surrogate, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Trump is not going to be sitting next to Biden, which will allow for what we saw at that debate here in Atlanta. You're not going to see that again.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of image is not going to happen again. And meanwhile, and when it came down to choosing his new running mate, he decided to go with his sons and go for a mini-me instead of something that could actually win him the election. Because that's what he is. A guy that wants people to kiss his ass, not say things on television against him.
Mm-hmm.
And he
I
was
mean,
still
definitely the first and probably one of very few questions that had to be answered correctly was, will you do whatever Donald Trump says if he asks you to help steal the election or something?
Because
Yes,
Lord
exactly.
knows Pence was going to run with it again because Trump literally nearly got him hung.
Yeah. So it's like the whole concept of this re-election has been completely short-circuited, and that's why you're seeing from Trump and from some other people that are around that are the closest to him that
I think we lost Kevin again. Are the rest of us still here? That might be me then. 1 second. Stand by. Discord might have broken. Well then.
his green circle is on.
I'm here.
There you go. What happened?
Discord just fucking broke. It was saying no root, could not connect to server, but the stream was still going, so it wasn't like my full internet. It was just Discord
Yeah, we weren't coming through either for a while because we're going through you.
Yeah.
Testing.
But we're back now.
Okay, we're back on the air, folks. Okay.
I hope we didn't lose a lot.
Anyway.
That part where I was gone, we lost all that.
But it was
That's
only
alright, we
like
weren't saying
5
much.
minutes, not
If
like
that.
an hour.
Yeah, it was a couple seconds. Yeah, a couple minutes if that.
Yeah, we didn't say much anyway, so that's good.
Anyway,
Anyway,
probably
we
about
should probably
time-
move on. Yeah.
it's probably time to almost wrap up here. And
Yeah.
two
True.
things by talking about the biggest anime leak that's happened, at the very least, in a good long while.
Woo.
Because near as what people can figure out in the here and now, a whole bunch of Netflix anime that, from the watermarks, it looks like they were prints that were sent off to a dubbing company, maybe a subbing company, maybe both. Leaked out. Like, let's see, the episodes 1, 3, and 4 of Ramna 1/2, the first 2 episodes of Dan, the the entire Mononoke film.
Like Princess
the fir-
Mononoke?
No.
Oh.
It's Gekijoban Mononoke Karakasa. The first episode of RE, the third season of RE0 has leaked.
They made a second season?
Yes.
Huh.
Was it the second season or third?
This is the third.
Yes, the third
Right,
one.
Penny
got
Van
leaked.
didn't even know they made the first sequel season, let alone
yeah.
a second
they
sequel
did. And
season.
They made a second season, and this was a third season that got leaked.
Yeah. Apparently, also episodes 3 through 6 of Dan have leaked, and the entire Terminator Zero movie, Terminator Zero anime series have been leaked. So the saving grace here is the print itself, because it was a work print, and I mean emphasis on the work.
Animatic.
Well, it's the resolution. It's coming in at sub HD here.
Yeah. Because it was just for like dub timing / sub timing stuff, not like for public consumption.
Yeah, it's coming in at a good old crispy 360p resolution here.
God, that takes you back about 20 years.
Yes, it does.
So I guess if you want to relive how the internet piracy scene circa 2007 was, you can go download one of these.
No, you're not actually recommending pirating these animes.
No. It's like, but yeah, this explains why I saw the Ramna 1/2 OP and ED this morning. Or was it whenever it was?
Yeah. Time is weird. Yeah.
Like, so yeah, heads are probably going to roll once everything has been assessed. Like I said, the good thing here is you got the work in progress print. It's gonna look bad. Like it's gonna look really bad, and I'm not sure today's anime goer is going to tolerate 360p. What the fuck? I remember when we were watching 240p, and videos were cut up into 10-minute chunks on YouTube.
All hail Daily Emotion.
Oh God! And I remember the MS Paint intros. You know, uh, and here's the new metal of the era. You know, Naruto Shippuden episode whatever part 3 of 3.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, I think this is a good place to end things for the week.
Yeah.
Well, that was an interesting and informative show. Next week on the podcast, we have Charlie McElvey, a comic book creator of the American Yakuza series. And Adam, can you give us a little more insight into that?
He's the guest we were supposed to have last week, but didn't.
Ah.
You know,
Ah.
so
Fingers crossed.
managed. Yeah. So we'll be giving it go number 2, or at least attempt number 2 next week. So hopefully things
Have settled down.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right. Well, that's it for this week's installment of Moonhawk Studios Presents. Again, special thanks to our guest. And we'll see you next time. Until then, I'm your host, Mac Paladin. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, kids.